Okay, so the prison genre just took one of the biggest L's it's ever took since its existence on YouTube by the loss of one of the best West Coast YouTubers by the name of Homie Hangout, aka Josh, aka Rascal, aka the Chicano Gang West Coast Boogeyman. Because let's get to the facts. This dude exposed every one of you YouTubers out there. Now, I seen videos from Dub, a video from Gunner, a video from, the only one I could say that was solid with Homie Hangout, just from our lens, was no other than Tim Snow from Texas Prison Stories. The rest of y'all is faker than a $3 bill, homie. And Gunner and Dubs, you got exposed by this same dude. And you wanted to be friends with him because you knew he was the boogeyman. And this is another thing, right? Homie Hangout never dropped his flag. He never was in no S&Y yard. He kept it solid, man. He retired as an OG. He stopped gangbanging. He brought a lot of peace to YouTube. And let's get to the facts, man. He came to my city. He came to Manatee County. Seriously, he came all the way across America to Florida just to talk to these young Latino gang members over here. And y'all want to talk about Gunner and Dubs? Are you kidding me? Come on, man. They're not even leaving their freaking mama's basement. Don't be talking to me about somebody that doesn't have respect in their own hood. Now, I ain't gonna lie, man. I teared up when I watched this video. This is Josh's mom speaking on his death. Now, I want everybody to make sure you go to her YouTube and just swarm it and just tell her, we're thinking about her. But let's listen on and we're gonna come back.
Hi, I am Joshua Mason's mom. You know him maybe as Rascal. His stations on YouTube are the Homie Hangout and Rascal Reacts. I am sad to tell you that Josh passed away today. I also want you to know that he really enjoyed his followers. There were times that some of the topics and some of the responses would irritate him, but he felt like he was giving you a service. He researched everything he ever posted. He never just spit it out there. He will be missed. He was loved. And I wish with all my heart that he was still with us. I would encourage you to continue to move in excellence. I would encourage you to reach out in a positive and productive way. I would encourage you to know that your community needs you. The kids, the teenagers, they need a positive role model. Not everybody has to go to prison before they figure it out. I was so very proud of my son. And I will continue to be very proud of him. I don't know if this post is going to make it out there, but I hope it does. And I hope you realize how blessed you were.
R.I.P. to the real West Coast boogeyman. Not no Kendrick Lamar. It was Homie Hangout, man. Because he exposed Lefty Gunplay. He exposed Swifty Blue. I mean, how many people do we have? And when it came to reading paperwork and breaking out paperwork, there's nobody better to do it than Homie Hangout. I'm sorry. And now this is a different feeling than when we lost Savage Studios. Savage Studios had it coming to him. This situation doesn't even sit right with me. Now, this was one of the last times the Homie Hangout was on the YouTube streets, and this is a long hour conversation, but I'm telling you, man, it gets so deep. He breaks down all these YouTubers. He breaks down how they all came together, how this Tony dude got somebody whacked in prison for doing stories with him, how Boxer was an informant. He talks about Loked Out TV. He talks about how the West Coast channels are in a box. He talks about so much stuff. This is a great conversation. Enjoy. And let's just remember Homie Hangout.
YouTube and this whole genre like a couple months before I actually started a channel. Right, it's not like I was a long time viewer or any of that stuff. I came right on the heels of a Convict's Perspective, right, in terms
Mm-hmm.
of making a channel, and so uh, and I didn't even know Boxer at the time. Right, I knew of him, of course, right. He's an infamous informant from the north, right, but I didn't know him personally. I had never talked to him, and Boxer wasn't even a part of this conversation at the time. But somebody had got at me and told me about the situation where this dude got at Tony, and Tony was going to interview him on the channel. Right now, people that know, or I know you get a lot of audience that's not from California, so sometimes I think maybe
Mm-hmm.
California politics, people don't quite get it, right? Um, Stories written by a current prisoner is a pretty cool channel, right? And he's got his own niche, and his niche is interviewing or providing a platform for inmates from the SNY, right, from the protective custody side. So dudes that have dropped out, dudes that have gotten removed, whatever the situation, people that were once in the lifestyle in the general population, but are now on the SNY side. He pays them a couple $100 and they come on his channel and they tell stories, right? They tell their life stories, they tell stories about prison, everything else. Sometimes the stories are true, sometimes they're not. I don't think most people don't really care, right? Um, but general population people, Mexicans in particular, right, from the north and the south, which is 95% of Mexicans in prison in California. You can't, you can't just go give interviews on platforms and that kind of stuff. It's not true that Northerners can't go on YouTube or Southerners can't go on YouTube. That's not true. But you can't be in prison on an active yard and jump on a fucking podcast and tell a story no matter what you're talking about. It doesn't matter if you're not talking about politics or anything else. You're just not allowed to do that, right? Those are considered SNY activities. But this dude, he was young, he was desperate, so he gets at Tony, and Tony floated it by some other people and said, and you guys were just talking about Flacco, right? Flacco was one of them. Tony and Flacco were working very closely together at that time. I don't remember if a Convict's Perspective had started, but Flacco had been doing a lot of stuff on Tony's channel, doing a lot of interviews, that kind of stuff, before he branched out and started his own. So they had a close connection. Flacco and I had just gotten reconnected from when we were in prison decades and decades prior, right? So we had just got started talking. I never even knew what happened to the dude. And he says, "Hey, here's the situation. What do you think?" Right? There's an active northerner in High Desert that's giving an interview to Tony. And I was like, the dude's gonna get killed, right? The dude's gonna get whacked. There's no way. The fellas on the yard are not gonna allow this. I think it's a bad idea, right? And that was communicated to Tony. Hey, if you put this video out there, regardless of what he says, of course he's saying no, it's not a big deal. Hey, don't trip, you know. And the guy didn't give up any game. It wasn't an SNY type of conversation at all, right? Apparently, it was just like about him, So it was an innocent conversation, but politics are politics. Plus, you're already in hot water. That's the whole reason you're doing a fucking interview. So why poke the bear when you're already in trouble? But so Tony was told, um, dude, if you drop this video, this dude's gonna get whacked, right? Tony decided to drop the video anyways. And it's not like Tony paid this dude enough money for him to go pay off the fellas, right? I don't know exactly how much Tony pays. I've heard different stories, but I know it's not thousands of dollars per interview. That would make no
Yeah,
sense.
I've definitely heard different stories too, and heard he waits till he gets paid on YouTube to pay out people. So on
That's
the
what I've
twenty
always heard
first,
too. Yeah, that's what I've always heard too. Right? Is and for obviously and for those that don't, right? We get paid the month after we make the content, right? So on May
right?
21st, I will get paid through direct deposit for all of the content that I made from April 1st to April 30th, right? So um,
Hmm.
if I'm gonna pay you once I get paid for a video, you're gonna be waiting for at least 21 days, right? And maybe closer to damn near 2 months. But anyway, that's his deal that he has set up with people, whatever. but it's not a lot of money because none of us are making thousands of dollars on any video, right? I got a video with 260,000 views, 50,000 views, and that's gotten a couple $1,000 lifetime. I've made maybe $2,000, $3,000 off that video, right? And that's a quarter of a million views. Um, and so ain't nobody really getting that in the short term. So, anyways, that's what happened. So Tony drops the video. The dude panics. And this is the part where it's a little bit distorted, right? If you heard about this from Boxer's channel, you probably heard something. I know that you heard a little bit something different, but I'll clear it up. So, um, Tony drops the video. Dude gets out and panicked. Hey, we got to take it down, right? I'm gonna get in trouble. Like the fellas are pissed, and Tony did take the video down. I believe like the next day, right? The video wasn't up for a long time, but you guys know, and especially in prison, a video doesn't have to be up for very long for it to be seen by people and for word to spread, right? So, especially a situation like that. Um, so, so Tony did take the video down right away, right? Um, but the damage was already done. Now, uh, that I never made a video about it. You know, I didn't really get into it. It happened. It was what it was. Um, I think it was talked about a little bit on YouTube at the time.
Hmm.
Um, but but it kind of was water under the bridge, so to speak, which is sad because you're talking
But
about an individual's life.
to be clear though, he was told before by Flacco, and
Hmm.
it was told not to
By
do
both of
it.
us. Yeah,
Oh, by you too.
yeah, yeah. He was told this is a bad idea, right? And understand that Tony has never been to prison, right? Tony's not a gang member. He's not from the neighborhood. I mean, I don't know like specifically what town he grew up in, but he's not from the streets, right? That's not his upbringing.
Is his life in
He
danger?
1,000% his life is in danger. And so his life has been in danger since early on when he started, just because of the people that he's given a platform to. And he knows that his life is in danger, right? I think that he understands that. But let's fast forward a little bit because then what happens is Boxer. So at some point throughout my time on YouTube, Boxer and I wind up talking,
Hmm.
right? Um, and so we're cool. I jump on his channel sometimes. He jumps on my channel sometimes. We don't talk anymore, right? But I don't talk to a lot of people anymore. But he's definitely towards the top of the list of the people I don't talk to.
Fat ass
But
Dave is his brother, right? Fat ass Dave.
yes, Badass Dave's my homeboy. Absolutely,
He's
Badass
funny.
Dave's my homie. Badass Dave is dope. I know
And
you've been talking about
these
interviewing
are
him.
all former Northerners, correct?
Dave is not. No, no.
Okay.
Dave. Now Dave grew up. Uh, Dave's damn near a brother, man. That's what Dave is. Dave is.
Okay.
Dave is like
He's funny.
culturally. Yeah, culturally, he's like half black and half Tongan.
Yeah, yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Dave
Yep.
is Dave is dope. That's my homeboy, right? But so and yes, him and Boxer have the same mother, but uh Cali Polly's are nuts. Shout out to Polly's. Um Him and Boxer have the same mother. They don't have the same father. They didn't grow up together. I'm actually gonna have Dave for an interview on the Hummy Hangout at some point soon. Um and have it try to be kind of a bit of a serious interview. Um he's a fascinating individual, man. He has a fascinating life story. He is hilarious. He has no filter, right? He has his channel. If you guys haven't seen him, man, check out Fast Ass Dave. Um,
Yep.
but but yes, they're brothers. But Dave never got into the gangbanging or nothing else. Dave's a hood dude. Um, but so anyways, Box and I
Yes.
are talking. We're in touch and whatnot. And then he wants to start a series, right? Called like Calls from Behind the Wall or something like that, where he wants to get individuals from prison to call in because he had like BJ, who's a NF dropout, um, who but is very well known and was well respected in the lifestyle, and a lot of people feel like he got the short end of the stick and whatnot. Uh, he had him call in a couple times, and those videos did really good numbers, right? And so he's like, oh, I want to start doing this. I'm gonna start having people from the SNY side call in, which is basically Tony's whole fucking platform, right? Um, and and so that is really what's at the root of him and Tony's beef, because then they start taking shots at each other, and they start talking shit, and they're gonna get in the ring, but they're not gonna get in the ring. And Tony, from what I had heard, Tony made some ridiculous allegations about Boxer, right? Or at least that's the word that was getting
Right.
back, was that Tony was, and there's a lot of dirt on Boxer's name, don't get me wrong. Um, but just because somebody's dirty doesn't mean that you hit him with any dirt you can find, right? Like there still has
Mm-hmm.
to be some truth to it. And so I don't blame, I don't blame him for being pissed if it was true that Tony was saying that stuff. But anyways, they developed this feud, right? And it gets very personal, it gets very ugly. And so Boxer hits me up one night and he's like, hey, will you jump on live with me? Right. And we're, I'm gonna go after Tony, right? And kind of shut this fool down. But and so then he brought up the high desert thing, right? Then I went on live with him and I stand by the stuff that I said on the live, right? Which is that the video should have never been dropped. That Tony is not somebody from this lifestyle, and he was told by people from this lifestyle um, that this was a bad move, and he was told how it was going to play out, and he still chose to choose profit over people, right? And I still, stand by that. But then,
I put a dude in the private chat for you. I don't know who this dude is, but he's been coming up on the scene. I don't want you really to say his name, so I heard he's a. I don't know if you know that
uh,
name.
I don't. Oh, let me see.
It's in the private chat.
Oh yeah, I know the name. Yeah,
So
that's troll shit.
is he no good too? That dude.
That so I never really had interactions with that individual. Uh, I never really had interactions with him, but that was somebody who was popular on on YouTube in the comments and that kind of stuff for quite a while. Uh, and was basically like a troll, right?
I think Tony's trolling us in the chat right now. He
He
says
might
you're yeah. He's saying that
be.
we're dead, and then this guy says, "Unc, how I make money, Unc."
Get it how you live. Sausage, get it how you live, right? But so yeah, Al Gore, exactly. Exactly, right? And so
You ain't got our Addy, bro. Better chill
yeah.
out.
I mean if you got mine, slide through. I'm obviously home. Uh
Yeah,
uh and so I ain't got nothing planned for the night. Let's do it.
yeah,
Um
yeah, yeah.
but so there was some stuff said in that live on Boxer's channel that wasn't quite accurate. But I will be quite honest, I did not have an interest in correcting the record in the moment because I felt like that was an issue between those two, and I took sides in that issue. Um, and trying to say things, but the dude wasn't whacked right after the video came out. The dude was actually whacked months later, right? Um, and like I said, there was multiple things that led to the decision to get that individual off the yard. It is undeniable that him doing the video for Tony's channel was a factor in ending his life. Um, but he wasn't. It was made to seem that the video dropped, uh, and then he came out to the yard and got his head cut off, right? And that's not what happened. Um,
How
but
did he die? Do we know that is that really what happened right there? That his head
he
got
didn't get
cut
his
off?
head. He didn't get his no. His head didn't get cut off, but he got stabbed to death.
Okay.
And so anyways, yes, the thing it wasn't right after. Um, that's really the only discrepancy, right? Is it wasn't right after, and it wasn't 100% because of Tony's video, or because of the interview he did on Tony's channel. I guess it depends how you want to look at it. Some people are like, "Hey, that fool was a grown man. He chose to." to do the interview. He accepted payment for the interview. He should know what he's doing. He's the one that's in prison. He's the one that's affiliated. The responsibility is really on him. I take a little more, uh, I take a more sympathetic approach because he's in prison. He's young. He's in a desperate situation. He made a stupid decision. Um, and apparently he made some other stupid decisions too that altogether basically cost him his life. Uh,
Yeah, because just the
I
interview
wouldn't
would
have dropped it though.
yeah, just the interview. Let's say he didn't have the phone issue. Just the interview would have been just probably a DP, or where he was still got murdered.
That's still enough. No, these days doing an interview is enough to get you knocked down in prison for sure in California. I can't say that I guarantee that that's what would happen if anybody did it. It is
Hmm.
still a case by case. It depends on who you are and the circumstances and who you talk to and who's on the yard. Like there's a million what ifs, but
Right.
um, I mean that's like saying, dude, I could pop somebody outside my house and will I get away with it or not? Well, shit, there's a million what ifs built into that, right? Like, what are the circumstances? What are this? What are
Right.
that? You know, but odds are I'm probably going to get put in fucking handcuffs. Um, if you do an interview as an active person in prison on a channel, um, odds are you that consequence is gonna be fatal. Somebody's gonna try to take your win.
For
They may not
Cali,
succeed or not. Yes,
for
for Cal. That's what I'm
California.
saying.
Yeah,
Speaking strictly for
because
California, and even more specifically, speaking strictly for for Mexicans in the California prison system.
we see it on the East Coast, and I don't know if
Mm,
maybe it's maybe they're not. From what I've seen, a lot of dudes on prison on the East Coast and other states. There's some active ones. Now, you're right about Cali. You're right about Cali. I haven't, but I don't know. You don't think there's
what?
any active at all on YouTube? Like, let's for example, 1090 Jake.
Hmm.
He's been mentioned in the YMW Melly case as the treasurer. He's been we see him occasionally with a group of people throwing up stuff. Would that be somebody that's considered active?
His politics are so different, man. To be quite honest, I don't even know. So I'm I'm not gonna put his name out there because he probably wouldn't be like super thrilled to be a part of the conversation. But he's actually a good example. Uh, there's a guy who's on YouTube, right? He's from California and he's black, right? Now
Okay.
he's from a gang, right? He's from a street gang. Did a lot of time in prison with all the activities, general population, his whole time in prison, right? And and a leadership role, even though the politics in the black cars are different than the politics in the Mexican cars, but they still have voices. They still have some level of leadership, even if they don't have official titles and stuff all the time. And he definitely was a person of leadership, right? He's out now. He's on the streets. He has a YouTube channel, right? Him and I both come from a generation where this active, inactive stuff wasn't even a conversation, right? Like those are terms that have become kind of their own beast, right? Uh, is he in the streets gang banging? Absolutely not. Right? He goes to work, he provides for his family, everything else. Is he loved and respected in his neighborhood? For sure. Uh, is there any consequence or any repercussion, or does anybody get at him sideways about anything that he says on YouTube? Absolutely not. Right? Does he tell a whole bunch of prison stories? Not in the same way that some of the other traditional California prison channels do. Right? But that's just his own kind of values and that kind of stuff. It's not because somebody's telling him he can't. It's just the shit he wants to talk about. Uh, if he went back to prison, would he have any issues because he has a YouTube channel? 100% not. Right? Not at all. Um, uh, could I picture him getting somebody from prison on a cell phone and having a conversation? Somebody that's on an active yard in prison, one of his homeboys from his hood or whatever. I can't picture him doing it because he wouldn't put them on Front Street like that in terms of like spotlighting the fact that they have a phone. You know, I think we forget sometimes that phones are still illegal in the California prison system. It seems like they're not because there's so many of them, but technically you ain't supposed to have them. So he he wouldn't have his homeboy call in to his YouTube channel because he wouldn't want the COs to go hit his homeboy cell and take his phone. But it's not, he wouldn't not have him call in because of any kind of like you can't be on YouTube type shit. Um, so the politics are different um, for different races. It's not just California as a whole.
Okay.
Um, and you do have, uh, like I said, this whole thing of like Northerners and Southerners in California can't have active ones, affiliated ones, can't have YouTube channels, isn't really true. Um, there are channels that are Northerners that are in the streets, um, who are in good standing with their people, right? That they're active, by their own definition, and they have YouTube channels. The thing is, they're not prison channels. They don't talk about prison, right? Um, uh, Hold on, I'm catching up in the comments a little bit, but not. They're they're not prison channels, right? They talk about rap music, they talk about shit that they see on YouTube a little bit, but they don't talk about politics. They don't really talk about gangs. They do when it comes to the music stuff, north to south. But so there are active people on YouTube from California. There's no channels that I'm aware of active people from California that are incarcerated and have channels. Uh, there's no channels I'm aware of, at least for the North, where active affiliated people have called into the channel from prison and talked, like in an interview or live or something. Well, I take it back. There's one dude, but he's a rapper and he talked about music. Um, but
A lot of SNY though, like Crit Mac.
yeah, S and Y's can do whatever. So Crit Mac technically, well, he's in the feds now, so I don't know how that. I don't know about Fed time. I never done Fed time. I learned from folks like Tim Snow when he talks about the feds. That's my homeboy. South Texas prison stories. Um, Chad Marks when he talks about the feds, right? So I don't know how that works in terms of his classification. My understanding is they don't really have S and Y in the feds. Crip Mac, technically, he was not S and Y when he was in California. He was on an integrated yard. Now, there are plenty of active people who will say, if you go to an integrated yard, the so called 50-50 yards, if you go to one of those yards and you stay on that yard, then you are considered the same as an SNY inmate, a PC inmate, whatever, right? You're non active. Um, that's what a lot of people believe. And, but there are some, in particular in different races, right? Again, you don't really see this much in the Mexicans because the politics are definitely more strict and cutthroat. Um, uh, it's just set up that way. But there are some who don't see it that way. But yeah, Crip Mac was never really S and Y. He came to prison and they put him on a mixed yard, and he chose to stay on that yard. Um, so it because to clarify, you have your general population, you have your S and Y, right? Sensitive needs, which is the old PC. They just changed it to a cuter name. Um, and the S and Ys are people that have a chrono in their file. They have a note in their file that, from my understanding, that they signed. And some of the shit I just learned about from YouTube, but that they signed saying, I cannot be housed in the general population, right? For whatever reason, whether they locked it up or they got blasted or they're ratted or whatever they did, right? They're homosexual, they got funny charges,
They
whatever
got
their
special
situation,
needs too, right? Is that the
right?
thing too?
Right, whatever their need, yeah, whatever their issue, they can't be in the general population. They sign a paper saying, I'm not going to be in the general population. I'm going to be over here with the sensitive people. Um, so that chrono, that's what makes you an S and Y inmate. And historically, then you would have to go to a yard that's only with those S and Y people. Then a handful of years ago, CDC said, we're going to, we have an answer, even though there's no question, we have an answer. And here's the answer. We're going to put SNY and GP together on the yard. So we're going to have yards where it doesn't matter if you have that chrono or not. We're going to put you out there together and y'all figure it out. Right. And so from a active standpoint, if you go to one of those 50-50 yards, then you're programming on the yard with SNY people, even if you don't have that chrono in your file, and you never said you have to be on a yard like that. Well, now you are on a yard with people who did do that, that are chomos and rats and weirdos and whatnot, and you're programming there with them. So if you choose to stay on that yard and not take flight on somebody, then birds of a feather flock together, right? Like, now you're a piece of shit too. And
Mm.
but that differs based on race, based on gang, based on kind of who you are. Um, the blacks and the whites and the others, there's a whole range of views. There's some blacks and whites that view it the same way that super active northerners and southerners do. And there's some blacks and whites that see it very differently. Just kind of everybody got to do their own thing. Um, and kind of it just varies. Uh,
Right, right. No, I mean,
but
it's interesting, bro. You got a lot of knowledge on this, just the whole layout over there, and I get that you have to be somehow disconnected from organization. No, not exactly like you said, but especially if you're currently locked up. So Tony, if he's a journalist, he should know some of this stuff. Even though you guys did tell him not to do it,
right,
he should know. He should be aware. But I'm glad we got it right. So he did delete the interview though before
he
he
did.
passed away.
Yes, yeah, he took the video down. I think as soon as he heard from the dude saying take it down, I believe as soon as Christian got at him and told him, "Hey, fool, you got to take that video down," that Tony did it, and then Christian wound up getting killed sometime later. I think it was, if I remember right, it was a handful of months, right? It wasn't like years later or anything, but it wasn't like the next day. I think it was a couple months um, before he got
Are
blasted.
are the California YouTubers are they amongst like are they famous in the prison system? Is this some like is Tony getting talked about amongst inmates? Is this something like especially with these organizations they have to be in tune to even know that got uploaded.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So you have some people who will say, you have some actives, right, who will say, I never watch any of these channels. And I'm sure some of them don't, right? I'm not saying that everybody does. I'm sure some of them don't. But there are very much active, affiliated people who watch, in particular, all the California based channels. Uh, I would say the channels that get watched the most are Boxer's channel, right? Paradigm Media News, Renegade Media, right, with Jay Hands,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and Tony's channel. I think those three channels are the primary ones because of the content that they make, right? Because they tell stories about um, current events regarding these different prison organizations. Well, Tony's channel, his has always gotten a lot of attention because, for one, he's the first one to really do what he did, and he does it more consistently than anybody. Um, where he's got these dudes that are dropouts that then go on a channel and they're like, "Oh yeah, I worked for Fly and I did this and he whacked this person backdoored this person and da 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 da." And so these organizations don't want their dirty laundry being put out there. And I'm not saying that everything that everybody says on Tony's channel is true. I've heard some stuff that I know is not true. Um, but I'm also sure that a lot of it is true, and most of it I don't know if it's true or not. Because it's not something that I know about aside from hearing it over there. Uh, I'll be honest, I haven't listened to a video on Tony's channel in probably over a year. Um, it's just not really my type of content personally. I'm not fascinated with those stories. Um, So I don't really watch, but it's definitely popular. And then the other two, right, Jay and Boxer, they tell stories sometimes that are current events. Like, hey, you know, this is how the Mexican mafia took over this yard last year. Hey, this is what the NF is doing right now, right? Um, I do some current event stories I have over time about things that happen in prison. I It's never been like the center of my channel. Uh, I'm not like putting anybody down for it to each their own. I tell some stories, um, but like I said, it's not kind of the center. I'll put some people on blast because I don't like gangs. I don't like prison gangs.
Yeah, you made that. I've heard you say that multiple
Yeah.
times. You've actually stuck to that. You said that on the show that you
Hmm.
don't fuck with gangs. Yeah. I mean, listen, if you can run Neutron, you would have ran. Would you have run Neutron if you could have?
No, because I didn't have that belief then. I That belief was developed through years of being a participant in the activities, right? No, when I came into prison, bro, I was gung ho. I was gung ho as gung ho could be. I was
Mm.
young. Um, I It was the greatest accomplishment of my life to that point. Um, to kind of get involved with the politics and to to be one of the fellas, right? To think because I grew up a gang member, I was a street gang member. I was just knucklehead. I
As
just
a
what everybody was.
as a young kid, you were thinking that was the goal from the beginning, right?
Well, it was always I always figured I'd go to prison because I started going to juvenile hall at 10, right? So it's not like I ever envisioned a life where prison wasn't going to be a factor, you know. And I had this idea of what it meant to go to prison and big homies and all this and that. And when I went to prison, I was infatuated, bro. And I will tell you what hooked me was this idea that I was a part of something bigger, right? I wasn't just a knucklehead for the neighborhood. I wasn't any better than any of my other homeboys on the yard, right? So it wasn't like a superiority complex, but it was just, bro, we've been running around with belts and bandanas and shoelaces and knocking heads. Um, there's actually a whole purpose behind this stuff, right? There's a cause, there's a movement. This this is for the betterment of the people that I care about. And I tell everybody I stopped gangbanging in prison. And that's what they tell you, right? As you kind of participate in the activities, is you are no longer a gang member. You're a part of something bigger. And I fucking hook, line, and sinker. And so the writing, the essays, the education, I never graduated seventh grade, but I was writing 10,000 word essays in prison. You know what I mean? And fast forward, I come home from prison and I go to UC Berkeley on a full ride scholarship, right? So like
Mm.
it wasn't just it wasn't just the tough guy shit. Let me get a bunch of tattoos on my face. It was my life has meaning now. My life has value, right? And which is ironic because also in that lifestyle, no individual is actually that important, So it's kind of a twist, right? Where you believe you're a part of this grand thing, um, and you are to some degree, um, but then also nobody's bigger than the program, so you're actually not that fucking important.
Is it a lie to say that you never had fun in prison at any time in prison? You know what I'm
No, I had
saying?
fun in prison. I had hella fun in prison. Yeah, this I had fun in prison. I'm glad I didn't have fun every day, right? But I, I would still choose my worst day on the streets over my best day in prison, just because being in prison itself sucks, whether you're having fun or not. It doesn't compare to not being in prison. I'd rather be homeless sleeping in my car, which I have been since I've been home, and I'd rather be homeless sleeping in my car than uh, kicking it in prison. Um,
Right.
but no, I had fun.
Did
Yeah, of
you ever
course.
see any white privilege in prison? I know California's segregated, but did the whites and the the Chicanos, do you guys have a advantage over the blacks? Because you guys are. I've also heard that you guys are more in tune with each other. You know.
So no, because you got to remember the north-south difference in California. So
Oh, okay.
Northerners program alongside the blacks, Southsiders program alongside the whites, and so like I was on a yard that had two handball walls, right? And so one handball wall was for Northerners and blacks, and the other one was for Southerners and whites. So they was on opposite sides of the yard. On the level four, there's only one handball wall. So Northerners and blacks play on one side of it, and Southerners and whites play on the other side. So, but I did see, speaking of like white privilege, in Solano in the level three, um, the captain, who was a white dude, came out to the yard and had a meeting with the woods, right? And in the middle of the yard, and then went walking with the woods towards the black side of the yard, right? Um, and basically escorted them across the yard to the black side of the yard. And when they got over there, the whites took off, and
Mm,
started taking off on the blacks. And the captain was kind of in the middle of it. The gunner couldn't even shoot. They didn't even spray at first, nothing, because the fucking captain was there. So you're not gonna hit him with no friendly fire. Um, and the captain knew what he was doing. He was looking out for his people. And providing an upper hand to his people. And so I wouldn't put that in the same context as like white privilege, the way that we hear it talked about in society, but definitely advantage. You know, um, at the same time, when I went to Selena's rally, we was getting contraband slid under the door by free staff, and that free staff was brown folks from Salinas. So there was a little bit of brown Salinas privilege there. You know what I mean? Like northerner privilege, if you will. You know, and so different groups get different plugs, and sometimes those plugs are based on your race or where you're from or whatever. But it's always been the case in the California prison system that the white administration, there are a lot of white COs, and they look out, not all of them, but some of them look out tough for the white boys. Um,
mm. They low
but
key.
some of
They
them,
they
yeah,
you,
they
you they
sympathize.
you don't think they're somehow because China Mac talks about this, and he says at one point he got arrested and a Chinese cop came to him and he said, "Hey bro, I'm with such and such. I came to check on you."
Hmm. It There are cops that, so I'm not aware of any COs that are like actual affiliates, right, of organizations aside from their own, right? They create their own little gangs and shit, the Green Wall and everything else. But I'm not aware of any that are actual members. But there's definitely some that sympathize, that will do work for, and I've seen that across the board. It's there's plenty of stories about COs in Southern California setting up Northerners when they go down there, because those COs are from the same communities that the Southsiders are from. They don't like Northerners either, right? And so they sympathize with their own. I wouldn't call those COs Southsiders. Um, there was a CO in San Quentin for a long time that favored the North, and even has some of the same tattoos as Northerners, right? But he wasn't a street gang member, but he came up in the neighborhood. He was influenced by that culture, right? He had a Welga bird tattoo that wasn't visible, like it wasn't on his hand like mine, but um, and he would do work for the Northerners, um, but he was still a CO, right? At the end of the day, he was still a cop. But that's the way that you pull some of these COs and some of these free staff, right? It's the same way you do with females, right? Some of the females that wind up becoming uh servants of dudes that are locked up, it's because they think the dude loves them, and they're, oh man, you're, I couldn't even do this time without you, baby. You're the one. You know what I'm saying? And me and you, right? I'm gonna look out for you. You look out for me. We're a fucking team. And some of them eat that shit up, right? And especially the insecure ones and that kind of stuff. And it's the same thing with dudes. But with dudes, I mean, I guess maybe some people play the romantic card. That's a little outside of my scope. But it's, man, you one of the homies. Come on, bro. Like people like us, people from where we're from. We gotta look out for each other. And of course, that doesn't work on everybody, right? Just like the whole sweet talking doesn't work on every female, but it does work on some. And some of them, they start to live vicariously through the inmates, right? Like, I'm important. I'm one of the guys, you know. Um, and but are you really one of the guys? No, we're fucking laughing about you in the cell. You ain't one of the guys. You're a fucking cop. But um, you know, but why not?
If they ever did a reality show and they put you in a house with Wes Watson and Flacco, how you think that would go?
Oh,
And of course, K Frog, you had some East Coast guys in there, but the whole thing is because now you're on YouTube, you obviously have been on lives with Southsiders, correct?
oh yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure you've probably made some friends on here.
yeah, yeah. There's and truth be told, man, I had Southsiders from Southern California uh that I consider friends before I ever came on YouTube. You know, the dude who convinced me to apply to UC Berkeley when I was graduating from community college, the guy that convinced me uh to apply to UC Berkeley was a guy named Danny Murillo, Turtle from the One Ways neighborhood in Norwalk. Very much a Southsider. He was validated, right? Different team, obviously, but he was
Mm.
validated. Um, we didn't never cross paths in prison. He went to the Pelican Bay Shoe and did 5 years just as I was coming home from the Pelican Bay Shoe, right? But he got out and went to college and very much active and all that other stuff. He's good with his people. But he came home and he went the college route and then started really putting effort into helping formerly incarcerated people get into the college system. So and he started taking college classes when he was in Pelican Bay, just like I started taking college classes when I was in Pelican Bay, right? So, anyways, we link up because he was on Oprah. He was on Oprah, and a guy that I knew
Mm.
who had a life sentence and was wrongfully convicted and got out was at some conference with him, and then got at me and was like, "Hey, before I met this dude, you guys should link up." And so after he was on Oprah, him and I talked, and I told him straight up. I said, "Hey, I tried to watch your thing on Oprah, and honestly, I got kind of a panic attack, which I did. Um, I couldn't watch it, and which was a trip to me, So I read the transcript of it though, and I was like, man, it's good to see you on there because you're actually speaking real, unlike a lot of these clowns on TV that been to prison and then they get a high profile interview and they say all kinds of weird ass shit, you know. And so him and I linked up. He was going to UC Berkeley, and he helped start a program there called Underground Scholars. And he came and checked out the program that I had started at Sacramento City College. And when I was getting ready to graduate, he was like, "Hey, what are you gonna do?" And I was like, "I'll probably apply to like a state school, and then try to get into a university later." And he's like, "Why don't you apply to Berkeley?" I was like, "Nah, bro, come on now. UC Berkeley's a little like that's ivory tower shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm not. They don't let people like me in there. I'm got a halfway decent head on my shoulders, but I'm not a UC Berkeley type of guy, right?
Mm.
And he's like, man, I'm going there. Like, give it a shot. And he really encouraged me, and so I applied. I applied to UC Berkeley and I applied to UC Davis, and I got into both of them. And I wound up going to UC Berkeley, #1 sociology program in the country.
Wow.
And when I went there, There's a bunch of people from Southern California there, right, that were formerly incarcerated. And these aren't people that were coming off of SNY yards and PC yards and all that other stuff. You know, these are righteous convicts, man, by by convict standards. And but they're in college.
I like
And
that. I like that. Righteous convicts. So
yeah,
to
it
be,
was
it's almost California has a standard that no other, no other state has this where you're you have to be a solid individual as a person. There's no wiggle room. There's no booty band. Well, I think some people talk about some booty band, but in reality, there's no booty bandits. I heard there's nothing like that.
there. I mean, there is. So here's the honest truth. Um, there's the image of California and there's the reality of California. Um, the image is pretty accurate, but there's an ugly side also. And some of these channels do a good job of putting that out there, right? It so like the story, I listen to some of these other channels from outside of California, and they got a million stories about dudes getting their ass took and all this other stuff, right? You don't hear people from California that have a million stories like that because that's not something that happens like that in California. But does it happen? Yes, absolutely. Is it does it happen? It doesn't seem like it happens as much as it does in some other states, and that's because of the gangs. That's because of the affiliation. Because and again, it depends on your race, right? But specifically, like for the Mexicans, there's no independent people, right? Not on the general population yards, right? Nobody's independent. You're a northerner, you're a southerner, you're a bulldog, you're a border brother, um, or that's it. That's all. You're one of those things, and all of those groups have policies and rules, and they're established and whatnot, right? And so you can't just go take advantage, right? Like when I went and put it this way, when I went into prison at 19 years old, weighing probably well, 150 pounds, right? Damn near 6'2". Skinny dude, kid. There was zero risk that anybody was gonna come fuck with me. Not because I was such an imposing, intimidated figure, but because I'm a homeboy. So you come mess with me, you got to answer to my homeboys, and that's just how it works in California for anybody that comes in affiliated, right? For any Southerner, for any Northerner, for any Paisa, um, to some extent, almost kind of for most black dudes, most white dudes, right? Now, if you're some square suburban guy that gets in a car accident because you're drunk and you take a couple lives and so you go to prison, um, then that's a little bit of a different story. Um, but the only ones who would take advantage of I mean, you go wind up going to a lower level yard or something, but the only ones who would take advantage of you would be other whites, though. You ain't got to worry about the blacks or the Mexicans pressing up on you and taking all your shit. You know, it's nobody would even think about it,
Let's get to
right?
that.
Uh, and so I think that's what's different in other states. In other states, you walk in kind of on your own and you got to prove yourself. In
My
California,
nigga.
in California, you might have to prove yourself to your own people, but you don't really have to protect yourself against other people in that type of a way. Um, but but there was a white dude I worked in the kitchen with at Slim's Valley that was getting raped by a celly, right? Who was another white dude. There was a
Oh,
South Sider. Yeah, there was a South Sider that was getting raped by his celly, who was another South Sider, right?
oh,
Um, there's dudes from the north with uh, a lot of status and a lot of authority who are known for uh, abusing their cellies, just to be straight up, right? So it does happen. It's not like there's something special in the water in California that makes it to where these dudes don't act this way. It's just a different culture. It's quieter. It's your own people. There's no Fleece Johnson running around fucking all the white boys, right?
I was about to say
Um,
that. Yeah, Felice.
yeah, yeah. There's no nothing like that, right? Because the Woods wouldn't allow it, and the blacks wouldn't allow it. Because how you gonna start a race riot just because you know you like blondes? The fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Like, uh,
So now the dude from Utah that was a northerner, that was a white dude. Now it really is like, after you said that though, the North is more, not, they're aligned with the blacks. And how the
mhm.
hell did that happen? I never. I guess you're. No wonder why you were shocked, because it's like, whoa. It's like, who allowed that?
In terms of the North hanging out with the blacks, or who allowed that dude from Utah?
Yeah, who allowed the white dude from Utah, Burner 420, to be a northerner?
So I'm not in the mix, right? So I mean, it's not my place to say who's in the club, who's not in the club, right? It's not even my club anymore. But and I've never been to Utah, so I don't know how they do stuff over there. I've heard different stuff about the dude. I don't, I'm not real interested in having like a whole YouTube beef or anything. My, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how Utah works, right?
Right,
Different states
right.
are
That's a
different.
good answer.
I, I will say I think it's weird as shit to be from Utah and be a northerner, right? Um, like northerner is Northern California, just like southerner is Southern California. So I know I'm in the minority here, like you know, nobody really gives a shit
And I
what
know,
my
and I know
opinion
you've
is.
seen Northerners in Onico, but did you see Southerners
Yeah,
too?
I did see some Southerners down there, but yeah, exactly like right how I jammed that dude up. When I was like,
Mm-hmm.
Northern what, homie? You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean?
You pressed him. You say what the?
Northern California. What the
Yep.
fuck you 5,072 miles from Northern California.
They're
Have you
just
ever seen Northern
taggers.
California? I'm
They're
like,
just They just tag. That's all they do.
it's I I don't get it, but that it gangs move and gangs move around, and it's just I think it's different because I come from a place where like we have all that stuff, right? So it I don't know. I guess I'm sure I would feel differently if I was from a different state, right? Because then it would be kind of normal. Like, oh, we're adopting shit from these other states. California doesn't necessarily adopt stuff from other states, right? When it comes to that kind of thing. A little bit like you got Latin Kings in California now, so it's not as if we're our own little bubble, but um I don't know. I just think it's weird. Uh because how do you claim a region that you've never been in or that you're not from? Uh but it is what it is, right? Like that dude said, somebody in his family moved out there and was like, "Oh, in California, this is how we get down," and so they copied it. I don't know how true it is or not. I really don't care, but um, I do get that, right? Like gang members move.
Like
Uh,
Pino was a Hoover in Florida.
yeah. See, and that's
It's a
it.
street.
Right. To me that's weird, right? But I, just to clarify though, because I think there's some people who misunderstand. I'm I'm not one of those who says, well, you can't be a real whatever, right? Fill in the blank if you're not from where that thing started. I don't think that. Like they got goons and tough guys and psychopaths and serial killers and gangsters and hustlers and all that from everywhere, right? No state has the rights to any of that shit. You got savage down ass dudes in every state in California, and you got crazy people that are just homicidal, and you got all that shit everywhere. Um, so I'm not saying that, oh, if you claim to be a northerner but you're not from Northern California, or you claim to be a Hoover but you're not from LA, or you claim to be this, but you're not from where it started at, that somehow you're like you're not really with the business, or you're a weenie, or you're a punk, or whatever. I don't think that. I think a lot of the folks that claim shit even in their own backyards are fucking weenies and punks and lames too, you know? So it's just because you claim a gang don't mean you're a tough guy, right? And because you claim a gang that's started somewhere that you're not from doesn't make you weak. I just think it's an odd way to identify yourself.
Yeah, like there's a choice to become, like you have a choice to become a gang. It's like the same thing with the snitching too. Like some people snitch because they're scared, but some people
Mm,
snitch because they don't give a shit and they're ready to face the consequences of the snitching and they're ready to kill some shit. Like people
that's
don't put
true.
that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, not all snitches are cowards, right? I think snitching is a cowardly act. Um, uh, I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's some circumstances otherwise, but to each their own. I'm not a criminal. I'm not involved in a criminal lifestyle. I don't engage in criminal
Yeah,
activity.
yeah, yeah,
If
yeah.
if I did engage in criminal activity, it wouldn't be something that I would talk about on YouTube.
Right.
Um, but I mean, I really don't though. I'm not bullshitting. But so I feel like people got to live in the bed that they make for themselves, right? We're not in prison, so I'm not under some mandate to go run around and whack people because they told, right? Like we're in society. The reality is, the vast majority of people in the streets really don't give a shit, right? It's a small subculture that gets amplified in music and gets amplified on social media and gets amplified when you talk to people from certain backgrounds. But most fucking people really don't care.
What happens?
Um,
What happens to the people that get a normal civilian that gets a like a white collar, or they call it blue collar, white collar crime in California? What happens to them? They have to follow. They have to follow suit.
yeah. So I had a dude. He wasn't like a white collar criminal, but a quick little example. I had a guy from Oakland who moved into my son's Solana. We were on lockdown because the Northerners had taken off on the Southsiders, right? So we were on lockdown. My cellie had left in that riot. Um, so I was in the cell by myself. And this dude comes and moves in, right? He's a Mexican dude. He's from Oakland. I was like, all right, cool. So I'm explaining to him, hey, we're on lockdown right now because of a north-south issue. There's some Southsiders that live in this building. Here's where their cells are. If the doors pop, if we get action at them, what I'm saying it's go time, right? Until somebody says otherwise, right? Uh, and he's like, man, I really ain't got no beef with Southsiders, bro. Like I'm not really tripping off that stuff. Like I'm cool with Northerners, I'm cool with Southerners, man. I'm a hustler, bro. I sell dope, and he had, I think it was like 8 years, for a drug case. And so he's like, I really don't trip off that stuff. I'm just trying to do my time and go home. You know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, that ain't really how it works here, my guy, right? And so I told him straight up, I was like, look, this is a Norteño cell. So you got options. Um, you can bang on the door and let the CO know that you can't stay here, right? You need to find another place to live. Uh, but I'm gonna let you know there ain't no place in this prison or any other prison that you're gonna find that you get to just walk around as an independent dude who doesn't play North and South. Okay. Um, he didn't speak Spanish, like he couldn't have rocked with the Paisas. He was very much, you know, an American Mexican, right? So, um, and I just tell that by just talking to him, and so I was like, there's no place in this state that you're gonna go in the prison system where you get to not play North and South. So, but you can try it. But this is a Norteño cell, so if you're not with the Norteño program, you got to go. I said, or we can get down. You know what I'm saying, and whoever wins takes the cell. But again, you you gonna run across this, again. Um,
Let's
or
get to that.
I can kind of or I can let you know how the program works, and you're not asking you to sign in fucking blood, but you're gonna have to go with the homeboys program. You know what I mean? And he was like, "Well, man, I ain't no punk, bro. I ain't gonna go lock it up and go PC." I was, I'm not saying that you're a punk. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying here's your options. You tell me what you want to do. You know. And he was like, "Man, I guess I'm gonna go with the program." Um, and so in hindsight, I've actually used that in lessons that I've taught, right, in classes and workshops and shit. Because here's a dude who was not a gang member. Um, he was made a gang member by the California Department of Corrections, um, because he caught a case selling drugs and went to prison. And because at that time, the California Department of Corrections did not have a classification for an unaffiliated Mexican inmate who was from somewhere in California, right? Because the paisas, even though paisas get busted in certain places or whatever, a lot of times the paisas that I ran across, a lot of them claim the state in Mexico that they're from, you know. So paisas, you don't see a whole lot of paisas that are like, oh, I'm from this city or that city, right? They'll tell you I'm from Oaxaca or Michoacan or whatever, they'll tell you the state in Mexico they're from. Um, and so, but you got to know where your people, at least in my experience, in talking to them, kind of being around some of them, um, they don't let you hide out. The paisas, at least back when I was in prison, they were careful about dudes hiding from the north or south and claiming paisa so that they could stay away from politics. They didn't go for that shit, and because they don't want issues, right? They don't want that kind of smoke with any of the groups either. Um, but so this dude was basically just turned into a gang member because he was labeled as a Northern Mexican by CDC because he was a Mexican that got busted in Northern California. And it was, in hindsight, like looking at it years later, it was actually pretty fucked up. Um, because let's say that dude gets out of prison and he gets in a fight at the bus stop, and he gets in a fight over a dirty look, right? But when he gets busted, he gets charged with a gang enhancement. And they're gonna say, "Nah, you're a norteño." He's gonna say, "I'm not a gang member." They say, "Bullshit, you ran as a norteño that whole time in prison. You were labeled as a Northern Mexican." So see the okey doke? He didn't choose that label. There was no other fucking label for him,
Damn.
you know. So now he's gonna do more time in prison than he would otherwise.
Wow. Holy
And
fuck, dude. That's
it,
crazy.
it's a trap. That's why the brown population in California, historically, there's a unique experience right there when it comes to that and the prison
I got
system.
some wild stories.
Hey, salute, man. Homie Hangout, man. Make sure y'all sub up to his channel. Just want to just do like a little recap. Yo, yeah, we're just
Yeah.
talking. He came on to originally talk about Tony. He broke it all the way down. So he got, Tony does have some benefit of the doubt, man. I'm glad to hear that he took the video down, but he was told also don't do it to begin with. So that's good
Yeah.
context, man. It's real.
Off top, man, off top. I appreciate what you do over here. And uh oh, somebody had said the feds. Yeah, so it is true because you got north to south of the feds, right? And so you do have people that go do time in the feds that are from other places, and then they get affiliated um with these California based groups that are doing fed time. And then they go back to whatever states they came from, right? And continue that. And so I understand how the gangs spread and how they migrate. That's not new to me. I'm just saying I think it's a little odd that people claim a half of the state and they're not even from the fucking state, let alone that half of it. But I mean, shout out to them, bro. Gang banging in general is a bad idea. Uh, Prison gang shit is for the birds. You know what I'm saying? That shit ain't good for us. It's not good for our communities. It's not even good for our prisons. You know. But teach their own. I don't like the gangs. I don't like the organizations, but I respect individuals who do what they got to do to maintain in the situation they're in. So I'm not talking shit about individuals. I know a lot of people that are still affiliated, And I have a lot of love for them and a lot of respect for them. And I hope that one day they're able to make healthier choices in their life. But in the meantime, there's no love lost. You know, um, they're doing what they feel like they got to do, and you know, we're all adults, man. We all got to make decisions for ourselves. But uh, you know, it is what it is. But I like what you do over here, man, and I like coming over here and bullshitting, and
Yes, sir.
you know, I
We do.
appreciate you. You exposed me to content outside of California. Uh, I see you, Neil. Salute. Actually, here's a question for you. If you got time, I don't know if you're trying to hop off or
No, you're good. Go
move
ahead.
on to other conversations, but
No, you're good.
I want to come over here and hijack the YouTube streets. But
You're good, brother. No problem.
um, so California prison channels, right,
Yep.
seem to be like in a bubble, and it. I don't get the sense, but you know, maybe you have a different view, right? But I don't get the sense that any other state really has that bubble. You know, you got dudes from Virginia and dudes from New York and Texas and you know all these different places, right? Florida, um, and you know if you're a California channel and you hit 100,000 subscribers in terms of like the prison genre, you're the cream of the crop, Holmes. You're the cream of the crop. There's very few based out of California
Right.
that have reached those kinds of numbers, right? Um,
Right. It's kind of like the Chicano rap. Same thing.
yeah, yeah. And I'm wondering because I love to have conversations with people from other states. I like to, eh, but it seems like there's a bubble, and I don't know if it's a bubble
Virginia's
that's
in it too a little bit because Jay Williams,
yeah,
Big Lance, Death, but Death is
yeah,
he's all over. He's
right,
um New York guys. Okay, this is interesting, right? So the New York prison guys, they never really put the prison stamp on themselves. They found a
mm,
way to go into other communities, but they've been to prison. Like a China
mm,
Brim, he's a
mm.
blood. China Mac. All these
Right, he's
guys
a
are
New York guy.
yeah. They know how to they brand themselves differently.
Mm. So maybe that's it, huh? Because so I acknowledge that in the minds of many, I'm in the prison genre, right? There was a time that I used to push back against that label because I don't only talk about prison, right? And I don't only talk about gangs or the streets or whatever. You know, I talk about all kinds of shit. So I was like, I don't really want to be in the prison genre, but it's almost like because my first handful of videos were talking about prison, and because there was like a surge of California prison channels that kind of I was in the early day of that um in terms of you know the Mexican based ones at least, and then it's just been kind of a flood since then. That I'm in. I acknowledge that I'm in the prison genre, even though I don't fully embrace that label. Um, so maybe that's what it's like the branding, because I like all these channels are quote unquote prison channels, um, but some of them talk about stuff other than prison. I don't know. It kind of sucks, man, because it feels like California is left out of a lot of conversations. I've heard stories about a lot of other big name channels in other states, and they just don't want to fuck with people from California. You know, um, they just don't want no part of the politics. They don't. But also like when I watch 23 and 1, or when I watch Chad Marks, or when I watch Jay Williams, um, even when I watch some of the black content created from California, but they you don't see a bunch of people in the comments talking about, oh, you're a dropout, or you're a PC, or what hood are you from, or this. You just like that conversation doesn't even really happen in the comments. There's trolls now and then, right? But it just seems like the whole dynamic around their channel is different. Every California channel that you go on, that's what it is, though. It's all, it's all, you know, because it's all like the standard, like, who's tougher and who's got the cleaner jacket, and all you guys are dropouts, or where'd you do your time, or you weren't on a level 4, you were only on level, and I'm have fallen guilty of that stuff a little bit too, but um really only when people puff themselves up, like, or people say they were places that they weren't, then I get irritated and I call bullshit. But I don't think you're cooler because you did time on a level 4 as opposed to level 2. I just think it's a different experience. But but yeah, I don't know. It's just something different about the California content and the out of state content, and it sucks because I would love to connect outside of California. Um, but it's like, you're just one of them California prison channels. Like, we're all thrown in this group. But I don't know if you see that, or I don't know. I'm curious your thoughts because you fuck with everybody.
Definitely.
Lost the
Yeah,
audio there. Hold on. We're popping.
Mike.
There you go. Nope. See some of the comments. See some of the comments while we wait for Plug to get his mic right. I moved to Ohio. It took 10 years to not move and think like I did in Cali. That's interesting. Close. I like that. Neil Cassidy. I moved to Florida for a reason and not to hide. Up top. And Florida was pretty cool, man. Florida was pretty cool. It was so different. I was in Colorado and Cali. Okay. Those Chicanos like us go hard in prison. Huh. Irony, yeah. 23 and 1 was staying away from it because of Savage Studios. That's what I heard. That happened before that happened before I was even on YouTube. Um Before I was even following it. But from what I heard, but some of you guys would know better, is Savage Studios went on 23 and 1 and his interview blew up, but he didn't say on there that he was on an SNY yard and he was part of a PC gang. And so I guess Josh got flooded in the comments or whatever. It became some kind of shit, and he was just like, "I'm not dealing with Cali politics." And I think he was getting threats and stuff. I don't know where the truth is and where it's exaggerated at, um, but yeah, well, that's
What
fucked
about
up
these
though.
Florida? What about these Florida channels? So you really don't have anybody that came up after Frog and them.
No, and I never so I'm not too I'll get back to this. There we go. I know 1090 Jake, of course. I haven't really seen too much of the K Frog stuff.
I know.
Um,
We the only
and
ones that keep them relevant.
yeah, and that's actually because that's part of it too, right? Is maybe because especially now we have so many channels in California
Yeah, side channels like
that
Chemo
shout out Chemo's Flicks. That's
and then
that's the
Triple
homie.
OG, which is like 5 people.
Right. Yeah, I know. Triple OG's that's that's the Illuminati right there. Triple
Yeah, I
OG
know.
is the
That's my
Illuminati.
whoever it is my homie. I don't know who it is, but
Right, right. But they but yeah, you have like a whole culture built up around the channels, right? You have the channels, you have the reaction channels, you have the the I wouldn't call them troll channels, but like the kind of exposing channels, the
yeah,
accountability channels, maybe like Chemo's and OG and them. Um, so we don't watch a lot of stuff outside of California because there's so much California shit. Um, so maybe some of the responsibility is on us for not reaching out. But I feel like a lot of those, like I talk to Tim Snow a lot, right? Texas Prison Stories, and
Yep.
he's been around a long time, and he followed all that YouTube stuff. So like the 1090 Pino stuff and K Frog and all that. Uh, that's OG shit. Like all that stuff happened before I was ever watching YouTube. Um, and now a lot of those people, like 23 and 1 does all kinds of content. I wouldn't necessarily call him a prison channel anymore, even though it seems he started that way. 1090 Jake, I wouldn't call him a prison channel at all. Um, so some of those early dudes, they've moved on past prison content. But K
Yep.
Frog, I'm gonna make a note of that. Uh, I'm gonna make a note of that and check out his channel more. Uh,
Yeah, man. Prison POV. I don't know if you know who that guy is. Splinter.
oh yeah, Splinter's dope. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Splinter's a riot. That dude's hilarious. I catch his stuff. Uh, I don't watch any channel religiously. I'll tell you actually the one channel that I watch everything they post is Chemo's Flicks. Um, Chemo's Flicks, I watch everything they post. Because a lot of times it's real short, and it's not like he's posting, you know, every day necessarily. And he's always posting stuff that's kind of relevant to the genre. Um, and I like his sense of humor and his editing and stuff. Uh, but other than that, I mean, I watch a lot of channels, but I don't watch anybody's channel religiously. Um, and Splinter, same thing. But well, yeah, he's a kick.
You
Splinter's
got
a kick.
Frank's
He's a good
vibes.
storyteller.
You got. Oh, what
Frank's
about
positive vibes.
what do you think
Yeah.
about the Loked Out TV? So he isn't from Cali, but his channel's like a Cali. It's based, and he's from Georgia, but he ran with a
Hmm.
Latino organization or Chicano organization.
Yeah, that part. Um, I have nothing positive to say about that dude or his channel or his content or anything.
Oh shit!
I have of all the people I have nothing positive to say about, I have nothing positive to say about him the most. Um, I don't. Yeah, I'm good.
That's a
Uh,
good. That's a good PR trained answer. But at the same time, being real, is it the race thing the issue there, or is it the content?
it's not the race thing. Um, it's that's kind of low hanging fruit to make fun of him about, to be honest. But it's not that. Um, there's righteous Northerners and Southerners of all different races, right? Most people are Mexican, but not all by any stretch, and so I don't take nothing away from any of that. It's the content, it's the act, Holmes. It's the act, and also there's no interest in the truth. There's no discipline of being accurate. It's just fucking wake up and say whatever you want, right? There's no real substance. It's a little clip of something that happened on some
Is
other
he
channel, and
favors the South Side news more? He don't really
oh, he
cover it up.
he for sure does, um, but I don't got no issue with that, right?
Right, right, right.
It's it's the fanboy. It's
The Blue Devil fan club. That's what you're saying.
and not even just the Blue Devil fan club. It's 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 just like a Southsider fanboy, right? Like,
Mm.
which I mean, it's cool if that's what you want to be, right? If he was making content about the North, right? If he was a Northern fanboy, I'd feel the same way, right? If he was sitting over there in Georgia talking about the big old N, instead of the double S. I doesn't change that. It's just the whole package. There's no
That's what I get it. I get it.
yeah.
I've had him. We've had him on the show before. Jeter's really close with him. I've heard this before from a South Sider. So that's who when I first started channel. That's who came on the show the most. Was I don't know, on YouTube at the time. That's all I seen was
Hmm.
in the smaller channels, and they were breaking down Locked Out TV, and they did the same thing you're saying now. So uh, I don't know. It seems like that's something like the Cali channel seem to be like with him, but he's more. So there's another one too, like Frank's Vibes. He has
Frank's
he
dope.
Yeah, Frank. So Locked Out and Frank kind of do the same thing, but
A little bit.
Frank has a name where he like in California, and then
So no, go ahead.
Looked Out TV. I don't know. I haven't. It's a different when you're from the East Coast doing that type of content. It's hard to have like people validate you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I'm sure that matters to some people, right? And I've heard that Frank has a positive reputation amongst his fellas, right? I don't know how much that's true. I don't have any reason to think it's not true, right? Just to kind of be clear, I'm not trying to say it's not. I don't. I'm not really in a position to know, right? I'm not from there. I'm not from his neighborhood. You know what I mean? It's but Frank also makes content, right?
Hmm.
Um, he he has a personal perspective, right? It's when he goes on lives and just chops it up and talks about all kinds of stuff, right? So he does a lot of, oh, let's post a little clip, right? He reacts to what he sees on social media, right? That's what he says in his thing all the time, right? We just react to what we see on social media, right? Which I think is a very wise way for him to reinforce what he does, because sometimes I think that's what allows him to kind of flirt with certain subjects without people looking at him sideways in his own community, is because he's not exposing anything. He's only talking about what other people have already put online, right? He's not putting any new shit online. Um, but Frank's from the area, so he's from his area, right? He's from Southern California, and he's been around. He's been in the streets, so he has a lens through which to interpret some of the stuff that he reacts to. He knows some of the individuals involved. He's from the culture. So it's not just, let me post a 90-second video and put this up here. And let me just fanboy over this dude because he's from this side or that side. Um, it's funny, when I first saw Loked Out TV, I thought he was a Crip, right? Um, I didn't know he was a Southsider. and and I watched his content and I thought he was a Crip commenting on Mexican stuff. And then I didn't find him very entertaining, so I didn't watch. Um, and I was trying to get the lay of the land of just the different channels that were out there. And then I did the video about G Face, right? The hood
Yep.
hopping rat from Southern California. And
Yep.
Loked Out TV responded to it, right? And basically said, um, G Face is the homie. G Face is solid. Now, obviously, he has no idea what the fuck he's talking about, right? Uh, G Face is a homie. G Face is solid. Why is this PC dropout SNY dude from the other side even speaking on this? You know what I'm saying?
Whoa.
Why
Whoa.
all this? So he took this whole angle, and I'm like, okay, there's there's nothing accurate about anything that's coming out of your fucking mouth, right? Nothing. And then it was more like, that's G-Face is the homie because he's from the double S, and this dude from the other side, and da 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 da. And and uh and then there was, I forget the exact language, but basically in the video was like, people can make fake paperwork, and this is way before the whole Gunner American Solo thing, right? But people can make fake paperwork. G-Face says it's not true. G-Face says this. G-Face says that. And I'm like, you didn't look at the substance of anything that was said. And then when I got at him in the comments, he was like, yeah, man, I didn't even really watch. You know what I'm saying? I'm just reacting, man. I didn't even really watch. So you're reacting to things that you haven't watched. So you're reacting to somebody else's reaction being called out, to someone else's reaction to being called out. And instead of looking at what they were called out for, you're just looking at their reaction. And now you're putting labels on me that don't fucking fit. Like, who the fuck are you to, like, why'd you even touch this subject? Right. And that's happened multiple times with him and different things that he's reacted to, where it's like and that's what I say, there's no thought to it. There's no, it's just, let me put a 90-second clip up here. Let me say some gibberish that's fucking irrelevant to anything, and loked out, get smoked out, yada, 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 yada. And I'm going to show you 10 seconds or 90 seconds of somebody else's video. And then make sure you hit the like, subscribe, talk your shit, do your thing, boo, boo, boo,
I used
and
to
move
do
on.
that, and I stopped.
Right. And it's like, what did I just watch, Holmes? So that's my thing, is that's why I say I have nothing positive to say, is because there's really, even channels that I don't rock with, even people who make content who I don't respect as individuals, even, like I said, just the channels that I'm not fans of, that doesn't mean I don't have anything nice to say about them, right? Like, I could not rock with you and still, you know, uh, 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 still give you credit where your credit's due. Where at least where I think it's due. To personal opinion. I have nothing positive to say about the dude. I just don't see. I don't see where he contributes anything. But it he gets his bag. He does his thing. YouTube's a big place, so anybody could start a channel. Anybody could upload content. Nobody needs anybody else's permission. And I'm not his target audience. So I would not expect him to give a fuck what I think about his channel, because I'm not the audience that he's going after when he posts it. I don't think it if he all of a sudden stopped making content tomorrow, I don't think there's a single person who watches YouTube who's gonna be like, damn man, I'm missing out now. Man, I missed that one guy. I'm missing out. Something's missing since this person's channel, since they're not uploading anymore. I just don't think that. I don't think there's a single person in the world who would say that. But
Damn.
yeah,
Damn.
there you go.
Hey.
What's funny is a lot of these podcasts will push someone who's really been there over popularity contest. Oh yeah, up top. And to be fair, I guess to him, there was a handful of Southside channels that that wasn't thrilled when I made the video about G-Face. And on some level, I understand. There was this thought that everybody from Northern California that started a channel must have been on some PC yard or must have fucking worn a wire for the cops. And that's just not true, right? But that is true of a lot of the people that were on YouTube, from Northern California. So
Right.
and I gotta hold myself accountable, right? In the sense that I did content with some of those people for a while, right? Like I went on camera with them, and so some people could make the argument the whole birds of a feather thing, right? Like, oh, you was on a live with this dude, you was on a video with this dude, so fuck you, you're just like him. Um, and I get that. My argument is we're not in prison, right? I'm I've been out of prison almost 20 years. I don't live by prison's rules. Would I do it all over the same way again? No, I wouldn't. Right? I learned some lessons along the way, and not because of people's opinions on YouTube, but just my own personal experiences. Right? I I did some things that I otherwise I handled situations as they came up, and if I had to handle some of those situations again, I would have handled them differently. Right? But it is what it is. I stand on what I do, whether it's right or wrong. If it's wrong, I'll say that I think it's wrong. If I think I fucked up, I'll say I fucked up. I'm not gonna pretend like I didn't do it. And so that's probably part of it. It is I don't know who the fuck this dude is, but I seen him with this dude and I heard about this dude, so I'm just gonna assume they're on the same boat. Because if he didn't do these things, why would he be on camera with them? And that's probably part of why I would get that pushback. Um, but it's regardless, it was a hot take, and it's funny because it G Face kept getting a pass, even though everything I said was accurate and everybody knew it. And and I got phone calls and I got emails and I got DMs and there was comments and um but no, it didn't get addressed. And because it didn't get addressed, this dude got to keep running around on all these large platforms claiming that he was from somewhere and up to something and everything else. And ultimately it's fucking whack 100 of all people that it seems kind of put the nail in his social media coffin on No Jumper. And it's like, bro, that's got to be an embarrassment. Like, it,
Right.
how you guys not shut that shit down sooner? I don't know, but not my car. So
All right, brother. Hey, listen, I appreciate having you come on, man. We gotta
up
do it
top,
again. Um,
yeah,
I'm
yeah, I
ready to
gotta
go to
record
bed.
me a video. Yeah, I'm on West Coast time, baby. It's
Yeah,
only
you're on
eleven
that West
thirty,
Coast. Yeah, yeah. You're at what time is it? 11:34.
11:34. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There you go.
But
It's
I
two
appreciate you,
thirty-four.
man. And get at me with anything outside of California, man, that you feel like I'm missing, or like, oh man, you should check this out or whatever.
Okay. I'll
Shoot
have.
shoot me a line or something, shoot me a
Are
DM or
are you close to Irony?
Irony Fisticuffs.
Yes.
No, I mean we're cool. We're cool, but
He's got good
we don't
topics.
super talk
There's some
offline.
good commenters that have good. I'm sure you have your own
Yes,
little little mods and stuff over there.
Irony's one of
Yeah.
them though too.
You
Irony's
have a
for sure one of them.
Discord? Do you have a Discord?
I'm just getting started with that. I think a subscriber set me up a Discord. So you think I should set up my own like Discord
I
page
think that will
or
help you with like your topics and the conversation what's going on. Like
you're on Discord, right?
yeah, we have 40 members.
Okay, what's your Discord? YouTube Streets?
Yeah, it's Zebby. I think it's what is the name irony? Zebby and YouTube Street. I think it might be just YouTube Streets now. Yeah, YouTube Streets. You could click it. It's on the main page on our
Oh,
page.
okay.
You could click it. We got a Reddit too. The Reddit's more for like the Reddit is like the Jessica Kent world because we were diving deep into that. But
Right.
um
Yeah, what happened to that bro? She blew up. Anyways, I don't want to get started. I know you gotta go to bed.
no, you're
I
fine.
can
Yeah,
sit
we'll
here and talk
actually.
to you all night, man.
Oh
I can sit
yeah,
here
we
and talk to
can.
you all
We
night, bro.
we could talk YouTube all night. That's what we do.
Yeah.
I love
Yes,
it. I
sir.
love it. All right,
All right,
bro.
brother.
Yeah,
You have
man.
a good night, man.
You too, brother. You have a great night. Have fun with your video, man. We'll get you back on here again. I'm gonna tap back in with you.
Anytime, bro. You take care of yourself.
Everybody else in the chat, you have a good night as well. And the ones not commenting, the silent watchers, have a good night. The people that fell asleep while you listening, y'all have a good night too, man. Salute. Appreciate everybody.